if one tries. So the requirements are basically, it's kind of a thing, you kind of, it takes some requirements, but they're all like general traits. So in one way, being a digital marketer is, I will come and talk about that a little bit more, of what that actually means and what that is. But one of the reasons is it kind of takes a lot of commitment to do it. For example, in my startup, I was awake at 5 o'clock at night, some nights, having to check how Facebook ads are performing in the US and make short adaptations, and suddenly things change around, and you kind of have to be really committed to get the job done. Secondly, this is a German word, it's called Sitzfleisch. That is kind of that you have to have a lot of stamina, so you have to be, in a way, ready and prepared to get the job done. You have to be obviously willing to learn a lot of stuff. So in essence, if you don't know anything about it, you start fresh. So you have to pick up a lot of new things. And while there is a lot of things to learn in the beginning, it's doable. Then of course you don't have to be afraid of, you shouldn't be afraid of numbers. So with that I mean digital marketing. One of the key differences between marketing and digital marketing is that I think digital marketing is a lot more numbers driven than traditional type of marketing. Because in the digital space, you can measure everything. So you can attribute where the users are coming from, what they are doing in your app, and then you can retarget them with marketing, and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's basically through all of these tools, through Facebook and Google, et cetera, that enables you to do these kind of things. And so you shouldn't be afraid of numbers at all. Then you have to kind of be an out-of-the-box thinker. So when you are facing some challenges, you have to kind of take it as it comes and come up with really quick solutions. And then obviously, last but not least, you have to be able to learn yourself and then check things with the team. So basically, it's kind of a thing where you have to pick up most of the details yourself, but then you check, okay, but this is why I did that and that with the team. Then you take that feedback with you, and you can use that in order to kind of drive the marketing activity. And the rest basically is kind of to get started and get going. So that was the intro. So let's go to the basics. I mean, this is kind of like a pretty long presentation in a way. It's like a bunch of slides to go through. If you have any questions, whenever, obviously just shoot. So I'm happy to try to answer anything that comes up and whatever you're thinking. So I guess this is not kind of a surprise, but if you go back to the 1960s, you had what you could call kind of mainframe computers. And since then, things have kind of developed a lot. And what has happened is basically, there came the mini computers, then there came the PCs, then there came desktop computers, and now it's kind of mobile. And with everything, every one of these jumps is basically kind of a 10x jump in the number of units that are out there. So it starts maybe with the 1 million mainframes, and today we are talking about 10 to 15 billions of mobile devices. Many of us have multiple of them. So takeaway is, obviously, things are going mobile. That's kind of the overall, I think, trend that you see, and it's, I think, self-evident, and everybody, I guess, knows it here. It's not really a surprise, but I think it's a thing that also in the digital marketing sphere, it's kind of the driver behind everything. Because also on digital marketing, a lot of stuff is going mobile. So I tried to find like a little bit academic here, but I tried to kind of find a definition for what's digital marketing, and there was a bunch of kind of unclear terms, and it was like not really defined. There was not like one kind of definition that overruled everything. So I just took the one from Wikipedia here. And kind of digital marketing, which what I liked about it is this, also known as data-driven marketing, is the marketing of products or services using digital technologies, mainly on the internet, but also including mobile phones, display advertising, and any other digital media. So in essence, the reason why I picked this one was because it kind of had the digital part, the data-driven part in it. And it also had the part that while a lot of it happens kind of on the internet, a lot of it also happens on phones. So with that I'm talking, for example, SMS. that is also digital marketing. It's also included in kind of the term of what digital marketing is about. So I have a question to you. If you think about kind of marketing, what is kind of missing from this definition? Can you come up with anything?
Who is able to do all this?
Who's able to do? Yeah, that's true. It's kind of like the capability part missing.
Target user.
Target user, right? I think it's, but I think if you think target user, it's maybe like a, yeah, but yeah, definitely targeting.
Maybe the context as well. How the context, how people are using those different places and how receptive they are for certain things.
Right. Yeah. Certainly. I think it's one thing, and it's going back to what marketing is in essence. If you think about marketing, what is it? Why are businesses doing marketing? Try to look there, and in many times businesses, at least if you take, let's say, profit-seeking businesses, they are doing it for the purpose of return on investment. So in essence, what you do in marketing is you do, let's say, back in the day, McDonald's would do like a burger advertisement somewhere. They would expect that the money they spend on that, they would get more of it back later. And this is the key part because basically because this implies that you have to be able to measure things in order to be able to know where did that user come from, when did I spend that money. In order to measure your return on investment, you have to kind of be able to measure it. And with traditional, let's say, if you have an ad out there somewhere on the street or something like that, it's very hard to know how I spent this money on this ad. What I'm going to say here is obviously the one thing that makes it possible and helps versus the traditional sort of types of advertising. So with that being, let's say, telephone or let's say newspaper. So this is kind of, if you look at digital marketing as a concept versus the traditional medium, the one key advantage is attribution. So, and what is the result of attribution? You see that the spend on internet ads is growing exponentially. So if you go back to 1995, and then you look at 2017, actually this year, the internet spend is expected to be more than TV ad spend overall. And I mean, you see the growth curve is just probably going to continue to increase. So as a result of this kind of advantage of being able to measure everything and consistently optimize everything, you get a lot of more people wanting to do digital marketing out there, and a lot more sort of spend is going into the direction of sort of internet. And here comes kind of the thing. So where does what do people spend that kind of money on? Or where do those dollars go if you think about internet spend? So if you look at digital marketing, this kind of the, I guess you can call it a donut chart or pie chart or whatnot. But in essence, you have 24% going roughly to search ads. So the search ads, that's Google basically. There's a bit more than that, but this is basically Google. And those things that you call there, this is primarily what you call search engine marketing. Search engine optimization is the thing that is free, which is part of search engine marketing. But this is a kind of a very complicated topic. Just this topic, we could talk about for a year, or probably 20 lectures about, because it's so complicated. But obviously we don't have the time. We have 2 hours to talk about, so I'll cover I did obviously try to cover everything a little bit. So then you have the next thing, that's banner ads. That's roughly 12% of the spend. This is also a bunch. This is also, for example, a bunch of it on. Basically, whenever you see a banner ad on, for example, Google, this is also accounted here, but it's basically on a lot of advertising networks and stuff like that on the computer. So this is all computer. This is not phone because phone comes here. Then you have some video ads, and then you have some other ads in essence. And then you have 51% mobile. So what is happening on that front is basically also that people use so much their mobile devices. So what happens is that a lot of dollars are basically being spent on mobile advertising today. And this is then again for mobile, it's a similar kind of pie chart basically. Then there's another thing, if you look at the mobile spend, and there's a bunch of spend, like roughly 50% of the mobile spend goes to search, so mobile search, and then it goes to the other, basically the rest goes to banner and then video and other and such. Right. So, mobile is what is happening when it comes to ads. So if you look then one more time here a little bit about, okay, so where, if you look at on mobile, what kind of things are being advertised, then you will see that a bunch of the advertisement, actually 25% goes to games. Being in Finland, this is obviously, you know, Supercell is probably like a portion of this. It's actually probably this much of that. And then maybe Rovio another small bit of that. And then the rest is some San Francisco based or Japan, South Korean companies.
Last, sorry, a question. The other one was US.
Yeah, this is global
It's
again.
Finnish data.
This is global again. This was US based because I couldn't find the pie chart globally. But basically, if you look at Western, all Western markets, this is basically similar to how it looks here. But in essence, this is global again, and this is kind of based on the App Store data. So then you have a bunch of, basically some 10% going to business, then you have 10% kind of education, 10% lifestyle. It's kind of also a very broad category. I guess it's a bit hard to define what these really are. Then you have entertainment, then you have some utilities, travel, book, etc. But in essence, a long tail, and these make up kind of more like the top 50%. So in essence, it's games, business, education, and lifestyle that is kind of making up the App Store marketing spend. Let's see if I missed something here. Yeah.
What kind of game do people are more interested in? Is it adult game or kids game?
I think the biggest spend of these is these casual kind of typical Candy Crush Saga type games. So I don't know who has played Candy Crush Saga or any of these main games, but a lot of people do, and it's like kind of casual games like puzzles and things like that. Yeah. One interesting thing about this is, of course, okay, because on mobile games are so far developed, a lot of the other kind of verticals, they're kind of playing catch up. So mobile games are sort of ahead of the curve when it comes to how do you treat the user, how do you analyze the user, how do you get the user to continue to use the app, and things like that. And this is kind of a key thing when it comes to this, because many sort of companies, let's say in shopping or some other vertical, like education, they are looking at how games are acting, and then they are trying to like cherry pick some of the features that games are using in order to make the overall kind of experience better. So let's say you would be launching an app in any of these verticals. Even then, it would probably make sense for you to see, okay, when does a game send out a push notification? Or when do they send out an email? Because they are the ones that have so big user bases that you will be able to kind of pick the best practices from that vertical. So, what are the main and kind of the biggest players in the mobile space when it comes to marketing? So I think it's very non-surprising. The top 3 players, or at least the top 2, are really non-surprising. First one is Facebook. Second one's Google. So it's kind of like everyone, like one would expect it in a way. These are the marketing channels that are the most used out there, and they are some of the most important marketing channels that you want to kind of understand, or at least kind of test when you are using these. So these when you're doing some online marketing. The third channel, then there's a bunch of other channels, but then there's another one, for example, called Unity. They're actually sitting in, they were part of that company is Amplifier, which is a Helsinki-based company. And then you have a bunch of other obviously networks. So you, for example, have, let's say, one of the ones that I've used, for example, Fiverr, and you have a bunch of other kind of so a lot of networks. So basically, Chartboost is, for example, a gaming network. AdColony is another network. Then you have Twitter, obviously. Then you have Apple search ads. It's kind of a newer thing. Yeah, and in essence, you can say that there's a bunch of networks, but in the top, you have kind of the social networks. And then obviously the search engines.
Was this now for mobile app marketing? Or
This is for mobile. In essence, it's kind of like for mobile app marketing, and then it's again mostly North America based. But many of these are also active in Europe and or globally for that matter. Those are kind of the top, the biggest players in the field of mobile sort of ads.
What is this Unity? I don't know.
Unity is actually, Unity is a company, it's basically a mobile game development tool. So it's a graphics engine.
Yeah.
So mobile developers, they use Unity in order to develop games.
Yes.
And then what Unity did is they bought an advertising company, which is based out of Helsinki, and they added to their own advertising capabilities. And then they used those games that were created with Unity in order to make ads. So if you play one of their games, you will be able to see some ads, sometimes for other games or for other apps.
Yeah. And Unity gets the money.
And then Unity, yeah, well, they earn on the way, they earn some commission or something like that. That's basically how that works. But for them, yeah, they basically, that's how their business model works. Basically, that they have a kind of, yeah, everybody can use the kind of graphics engine. If you want to do ads, you can also do ads, but then they earn a little bit along the way. And it's kind of a good model because seemingly it's working. With Unity, I don't have any particular experience. I have most experience with Facebook. I think this is where most of our spending went for ads. And then I have some experience with Google, obviously, and then some of the, like I said, Fiverr, and then a little bit of the other, like Apple, for example, the other networks. But in essence, let's say you would have to launch kind of an app, or you would want to launch anything on the internet for that matter. In the end, if you want to spend some money trying to get some users, in all likelihood, at least that's my advice, it would be to maybe start here. Because they are self-service platforms, super easy to set up. Everybody that has a Facebook page can in essence set up the business manager for free, and you can in essence try it out. Similarly with Twitter, you can technically also set up a Twitter account and even do some self-marketing if you want to do that. Try to get in some feeds of people, for specific people or something like that. Those are things you can do. But yeah, in essence, I would say that one of the things that I would focus on if I would start out is probably try to start out with something like Facebook, and then obviously a little bit of Google. But each of these is complicated. Every time you start on the first level, to get into it, it takes a bit of time and a lot of experimenting and etc. etc. So it's a bit of a, it's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's a thing you can get in, and once you start it, you kind of figure out how it works and you get better at it.
Is there any e-commerce platforms?
E-commerce platforms for ads. Yeah, I think actually at some of these networks, they are also focused on e-commerce players. So some of them are focused on games. So Chartboost, classic example, purely games. Unity, purely games. But I think, for example, I would have to actually double check that, which one exactly I would go for. But I think that some of these are, obviously you could use all of these. These are fine for every type of product. But I think, for example, Tapjoy would allow you to also do ads for sort of e-commerce companies. But Chartboost, for example, will not allow you to do that. Chartboost is purely games. All right. So now we're getting to the kind of point where this kind of high-level picture here on things you can do and activities you can do when you do kind of marketing. So, in essence, they kind of, I found this picture, basically more or less copied it in here, changed a little bit around, but in essence, you have like these basically three areas up here. So you have like search marketing. That's basically what I mentioned earlier, it's kind of like Google. So that's what you call search engine optimization. That's if you, for example, have an ad and an app in the app store, changing the wording in your description may change how your app appears when people search for a word. So if a person searches shopping in the app store, then it spits out the results, and that's based on an algorithm. And that algorithm uses the descriptions of the words in the description, volume, and a bunch of other stuff. And then search engine optimization is in essence that you find good keywords that are unique to your product in a way, or not unique, but at least somewhat relevant, that leads people to click on your product. So for example, if you would search for Clash in the App Store, in all likelihood you would find a title from Supercell. Clash Royale, Clash of Clans, etc. Search engine marketing is a bit different. It's more like a thing where it's paid. The key difference here is that those are kind of paid. So that's how Google works. They kind of protect keywords. So if I have a company out there, for example, called Blitz, then I want to protect my brand. So if a person searches Blitz, they will find it first on the App Store. That's then search engine marketing. Then you have a bunch of different forms of it. There is, like, for example, pay-per-click, pay-per-inclusion fees, etc., etc., etc. But there's a bunch of other things you can do. But in essence, okay, let's say this is one of the things that you can do when you do digital marketing, search marketing. Then you obviously have online PR. So there's a bunch of things that you can do. There are publishers that you can contact. There are journalists that you can contact. I think, for example, that is the thing you want to kind of, you definitely want to do because it usually doesn't cost you anything. It's a thing that you want to try to do to get basically your name out there for free. Then you have online partnerships. So basically this is like affiliates. There's supposed to be sponsorships there. Then it's co-branding, link building, and so on. So that would be, for example, if you could, let's say, if you build a partnership with an existing network out there, for example, that you say, okay, we give you our traffic exclusively, or if you have a blog. So if you have a blog, let's say, where you have where you're doing, for example, mattress reviews for these online mattresses that are coming out. Then you could do, for example, an online partnership with that mattress company. And then you work together with that mattress company to give them users, etc. This is like a typical example. Then you obviously have a bunch of things that you can do offline. Those are kind of the things that are traditional marketing. So with that I mean like personal selling, or that you go up and do sales promotion, or you try to advertise things on the street, etc. So in essence, basically, to give it a bit, to shorten this bit down, because otherwise it gets a bit too academic, you have a bunch of stuff that you can do when you choose to make your marketing strategy. And for each product, so no matter which product you want to develop, you should pick some of these activities that fit your product and put them into your particular marketing strategy and try them out. And usually it makes most sense to do multiple things at the same time. So I wouldn't say that you should do like only one thing, but like try to do multiple things. Try to do things offline and online, this and that. Try to go and meet up with some people, give them some information about your product, etc., etc. Because in the end, the more different places you are, it also has some synergy. So then for apps, to keep it kind of a bit short, it's like you have basically a three kind of step process. So it's like you have to acquire the right customers, then you have to engage them to make them use the app, and then you have to kind of re-engage them to drive your kind of return on investment. This actually comes from Facebook, from their kind of app marketing thing. So this is kind of the thing that if you will work with the digital marketing for an app, these are the three stages that you will work on. So it's all about acquiring, engaging, and then kind of re-engaging. So, and acquiring is pretty simple, that we have kind of talked about already. That's basically how do you get the user into the app. Engaging is basically how do you make the user stay in the app, continue to use it. And re-engaging is if a user already stopped using your app. So let's say everybody has installed hundreds of apps on their phones. There might be only 10% of them that you're using. So for many of them, you are already a churned user. And then you can do activities to re-engage them. So this is getting actually a bit creepy, this part, this re-engagement part. So you might see that if you have a certain app installed, you might see suddenly that app making particular marketing to you on your Facebook feed or on Google, because they knew that you have not used the app over the last 7 days. So then they make specific ads to you in order to kind of get you back to use the app. And in essence, those are kind of the three stage kind of process that you use when you do digital marketing. So here one more thing. So this one's a bit funny. So there's this app called Wish. Who has heard of the e-commerce app Wish before?
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere, right? It's kind of basically selling kind of Chinese products, or connecting Chinese producers with consumers all over the world. And I happen to know the guy at Facebook who was managing their account. And this is kind of a little bit inside information, but in a way, so they are one of the biggest spenders on Facebook. They have been for a while the biggest one. So what I want you to guess is, how many people do you think they have working in their Facebook marketing department? Any guesses?
What percentages or numbers?
Numbers. So I actually already nailed it. One.
Wow.
So they are spending, I don't know, $100 million or whatnot on this. But there's basically one guy who's kind of running that. And it's obviously, it kind of shows you the character of where this whole thing is going. It's like very numbers driven, very engineering driven, and very sort of, you integrate with the marketing partner and build it based on purely on data. So it's all algorithm basically. It's a bit creepy, but yeah. But then obviously in the end, if you want to buy cool stuff, you shouldn't use Wish. I didn't want to make marketing for them here because in the end the app Blitz is competitor to Wish, so you should use Blitz instead. But you can't in Finland yet. So, but if you're in the US, you try to use it.
How are they rolling with this? Like,
Sorry?
what are their, what's their success with this one person?
Well, it's like, it's a bit hard to say, you know, I mean, it's basically, the way I have heard it is that it's a guy, it's like an engineer, and he's working with the team at Facebook, the engineering team at Facebook. And when you see those ads, it's basically the way I explain it to myself is that, you know, they use these carousel ads for different products. So you see like 2 different products beside each other, and then a third one, then you have to kind of click on in order to see the third one.
Yeah.
And then they obviously, what they are doing is probably they are kind of automating and optimizing automatically kind of with all of the data that they have, which products to show with what reductions and whatnot. So it's kind of this kind of a thing that they're doing, which in essence is, it's very far away from the marketing it was back in the day. It's not like some fancy agency that comes up and then says, oh yeah, but I think this should be green or this should be red. Today, you get the proof by testing it.
But then isn't this only based a lot on like past data? Like obviously it's always going into the past, but so how can they then take future change into consideration? I'm not sure if this is going too far away, but
No, but I mean, it's a good point because in essence it is coming all from kind of historical data, right? But in the end, if you want to predict the future, the best guess that you have is history and past behavior. So if let's say I'm a user and I decide to read, okay, this may be a bad example, but if I decide to like open up a particular ad on Facebook today, I may be more inclined to open a similar one tomorrow, kind of. It's kind of the best guess of what you can expect a future user to do. And that's why it's kind of going into that direction. But I think that this, sorry.
And if you have no guesses, or you have no previous experience with that, you just try and you just have to experiment.
Precisely, we're coming to that actually.
Okay.
So so what do you do actually when you don't have any knowledge, right? But in essence, I think that this part kind of concludes the basics. And this was a bit more about the landscape and what's happening in digital marketing. A bit overdue here, but maybe we can run through the next one a little bit, even though this is, I think, at least one of the little bit more interesting ones. So this is kind of the app learnings. So if you look at these 2 ads, we ran both of these. Which ones would you think would perform better? Left or right?
Right.
Left. So who wants to vote for left? Raise your hand. Who wants to vote for right? I think it was a bit more for left, right? Even though there were some for right. I was very surprised when I tested this. This were 2 of the ads that I was running, and the winner is right. And even by a huge margin. The funny thing about it is, even by a pretty huge margin. And obviously this depends on who you show to also, but it depends on who you show to, but this one was particularly better performing. So what do we learn out of that? The first learning is, I think you have to shut out all preconceptions that we have when you do online marketing. So what I mean with that in a way is, okay, in essence, we don't know that much as we may think we do know. We don't know what a certain user type, how they would react to whatever. So before you have like a real proof from data, you cannot really forecast the future. That's why I added this picture there. So basically, in essence, you have to kind of prove it by testing it. That's kind of what I mean with this. So let's run through these a bit faster. That gets stuck on this too much. Second one, and this is kind of now really a bit dry, but in essence, it's 2 different ways of thinking. So it's inductive versus deductive experiments. In essence, every time you run an ad somewhere to a user, it's like a little bit of an experiment. Will that person click? Will it not click? In essence, the job of the digital marketer, or the app marketer for that sense, the task is to optimize and make sure that as many people click and as many people come in as possible. And there are different ways of doing it. So one way is the inductive experiment kind of and thinking. And what I mean with that is basically that you don't start with any hypothesis. So you go in and say, I market to all females, or actually no gender whatsoever, I market to everybody living in the US. To make it very clear. So I don't have any explanation on it. I start super wide, and then I start digging down. I start finding the patterns, I start analyzing the data, and I see, okay, maybe my product and my ad is better for females. Maybe it is better for males. Maybe it's better for older people, maybe it's better for younger people. Start digging down, 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 and in the end you know, okay, you have the proof, yes, it works for this group of people. The deductive experiment is the opposite. It's kind of what I just told you not to do. It's that you would say, I know exactly what my users are. They are 30-year-old females living in Manhattan. And then you try to only do marketing towards them. And in the end, these are kind of the two different ways of approaching this whole thing. When you think about target group, when you think about ads, when you think about everything. And my recommendation to you would be, while this one will take you some time, this one's the better one, because you can always trace back why you did what you did. In this one, you start so narrow, so you can never trace it back. It will always be like a thing, okay, why did you just market to them? It sucked. The ad was horrible. This didn't work at all. Then what do you do then? You cannot do anything. And that's why the way to do online marketing in general, especially if you, let's say you would work for a digital marketing company today, and you would actually do user acquisition for them. Safe bet would be to go with the broad approach and start narrowing down as much as you can. Especially if you're a bit more junior and you're kind of like a beginner in it and you don't know what might work at all. The deductive one is much more complicated, and it's a little bit tricky. You cannot really guess it. So then,
Excuse me.
yeah,
What if your product is something very specific? For example, if you target for something that, I don't know, some software that only a particular company uses.
very, very good point. I mean, this is very key point. I mean, it differs obviously if you're B2C or B2B business also. So if you're selling to business, it's a totally different thing. Obviously, this is mostly related to B2C stuff, that as we mentioned. And then secondly, it's obviously, it kind of, it differs exactly with what you are saying, that if you have, let's say, a very specific type of product that you want to sell to doctors, for example, like not a medicine, but maybe like a tool for doctors,
Yeah.
then you would only want to target doctors. And in that case, you would go in with some sort of a deductive reasoning that, let's say, the person on the street would not be the right customer for this product. You would try to target only doctors. But then inside the subgroup of doctors, you might not know which one is the right one.
Yeah, exactly.
So then inside the subgroup of doctors, you would then try to use probably an inductive.
Probably you know about age of doctors. Definitely, they are not 16.
Right.
They are over 30 usually. And
Precisely.
I have worked with a company, instrumental medical clinic,
Yeah.
and exactly they were provided dental instruments.
Right.
And if we go like that in the inductive experiment, it will fail and nothing will work.
It's a really good point. I mean, I think you're capturing it with that example very well. I mean, there are obviously cases where you cannot go fully broad, but you have to narrow it down to your subset. But then once you're in that subset, you have to still pick an approach. Like, do I go for these type of doctors, or do I just go broad and then see where the data leads me? Yeah. Then you have your funnel. This is the third one. You have to know your funnel before you launch and market anything. So this is a business to consumer based traditional funnel, let's say for a game. Here you have all the users. Here you have the funnel. And here's kind of a step every time there's something happens. So here's when an impression is shown to a person. Here is when a person clicks on the impression. Here is when a person installs the app. Here is where a person registers, and so on. Here's where they then start becoming a paying user, and here's where they are referring. This is a generic funnel, but it is very applicable, and you kind of have to really know this stuff if you want to get into digital marketing ever. You have to understand what is it that I'm doing, what is an impression, what is a click, what am I paying for it, etc., etc. You really have to know your stuff when it comes to the funnel and your kind of key KPIs. In essence, every business has something like this. It just differs in how specific it is depending on which business you're doing all the time. So okay, now this is getting very busy here, but I tried to make a kind of a calculation. In essence, I calculated kind of very simply every step of the funnel here with some very basic data. So you start with $1,000, and then you have like this amount of impressions and so on, and then you calculate what's your cost per impression, what's your cost per click, how much do you pay per click, how many people out of a percentage of people that have seen the impression click through the impression. That's like 1%, for example, in this case. And then, okay, out of the people that have clicked, how many of them are then again installing the app? It's 20% in this case, leading to $2.5 in cost per installation. The key part when it comes to all of this stuff is that every online business has these kind of KPIs, and the business revolves around optimizing these. It's not much more complicated than that. Obviously, then for each of these you can break it down, etc., and then figure out how do you want to approach it. But in essence, the analytical framework that is used for digital marketing is this stuff. So you start with a big group, they go through a funnel, you end up with a smaller group. Where do the people drop off? How do we target the people, and how do we improve it? So basically what I've done in the last 2 years is basically trying to optimize this stuff. Trying to come up with stuff or features in the product or in the way I do marketing that make this improve. Right. Then there's one key term that kind of, if you go to investors and you have an app and you want to tell them, like, I have this great app idea, it's the best app in the world, and I just launched it, I got a little bit of data, and it's super great, and you're trying to get an investor on board, they will always ask you for one number, and that's what they call lifetime value of the user. So the lifetime value of the user is, again, it's not complicated at all. It's basically what's the value of a paying user. For example, if you're in a game, what is the total amount of purchases that user would make on average if he is a paying user? So that is in the if you take the very simple formula for that, it's very simple. It's like you take the number of times a person buys, how much he buys, over a certain lifespan. So if I have a user that buys 3 or 5 times coin packs for $1 over 6 months, then it's 5 times 1 times 6, his lifetime value is $30. It's kind of it's not only relevant for investors, but it's also relevant for obviously internal managing of the app or of your business, whatever you do. You kind of have to know, if you're spending money on marketing, you have to know, okay, how much do I pay for them and how much do I get out of them? And that's what the business then boils down to, is I spend $50 on a user, but he brings me only 10. Well, you're in trouble. So I think if I want to highlight one thing out of all the stuff that I'm talking about here now, even though it's a bit dry, this is the stuff. This is what you need to know. Yeah, so then 4 is kind of, yeah, you have to define a marketing plan and then you have to know and model it beforehand. So before you launch anything, you obviously you have to know kind of what you do and what you want to execute. So basically this is kind of what I actually used back for Biddle when I launched it and what I kind of like discussed with the board and so on. And it's just basically going back to that other picture I sent, I showed. So if I go back to this, in essence, I kind of figured out for my business, I think this could work best. And then I picked a bunch of these activities and figured out, okay, this is what I want to do. So in essence, for example, I had like these campaigns on these different social media channels. Like you have to do like a viral launch campaign. So if a user invites another friend and the first time he comes in, he gets an amount of extra coins and things like that, for example. Then I had like, yeah, I kind of have to know who I'm marketing against. This is kind of the thing that I then figured out, okay, it didn't work out so well. Like I said, I wasn't really able to forecast who my user was in the beginning. It was kind of wrong. So I had to kind of start from scratch and start with a bigger user group and then narrow down and so on. So in essence, this is just like an example of kind of the marketing plan that was put into practice. So 4th learning is basically you have to define a marketing plan and model it. 5th one is how you can help marketing with the product. So basically this is all about this virality. So for every user you get in, how many extra users does that user give you? So basically, that's what you call, that's basically in essence, that's virality. So if you, let's say anybody here would install my app on your phone, and then you tell your friend, and that friend becomes a user of my app, then your K factor in this case, or whatever you want to call it, then you have a virality of 2. Is that person? If you give 3, that's 3. And there's like an average number, and if that number is significantly higher than 1, then you get virality out of it. And that can be done, as you see many times. Almost every internet business uses it, Airbnb, etc., etc., etc. Invite your friends, refer your friends to get a bonus. You see it everywhere, Uber, everywhere. Well, I guess Uber's banned here, so everywhere. So the reason why they do it is this, because this is exponential. Maybe for you it's with 1 person, but if 1,000 people do that over and over and over again, it spirals totally out of control, and you get a crap load of people coming into your app. And you just want, and then you're sitting there as a marketer, and you're looking at the data, and you're like, where do these people come from? And then you have to understand, okay, they must be coming from somewhere else. So there must be referrals. So this was one of the things we did at Biddle, for example. So we had roughly something like 40,000 free installs in total. And a lot of it came through these referrals. So these are things that are quite powerful if they work, and that are really good kind of marketing. Really, really key when you launch a product. Then one lesson, or not lesson, but like a point is that beginnings are always hard. So it's like this, if you start up anything, it will always, even if you think it's going to be this big success or whatnot, it's always not going to be that success, basically. It's very, very hard to get to the point on it. Usually, it's very, very hard. Very few are this case where you're just like Facebook, and things just spiral out of control by themselves, driven by this. So most of the times, it's a thing where you eventually you'll end up where you want to end up, but it takes some work, and that's why I'm saying often it takes some work. I'm not saying that it cannot happen for you. So obviously you can have the greatest success out of nowhere. That's definitely possible, but there's no point for you to plan for it, right? You should always plan that might not work out so well, so that because then you're ready when it wouldn't hit. So if you are starting up, obviously, it doesn't make sense to think that you are going to have like 1 trillion users in your app tomorrow, even though it might happen or it might not happen. So this was also one of the things that we learned pretty, in my case, quite aggressively. You see that in the beginning it's much, much harder, and you kind of figure it out along the way, and then suddenly you're there. And then you grind up a little bit more, and then you figure out this feature or this thing, and then suddenly you are over that edge. And then it goes really well. Then there's one thing, I call it launch hard here. With that I mean basically that when you launch, or when you do a full launch, basically you should try to launch as much as, like, with as much factor as you can. So that I basically mean you should go for PR, you should have launch campaigns, you should try to mobilize everybody around you to share the app, to help you, etc., and you should try to go to the app stores if you have an app. And you should try to go to the app stores and try to ask them if they like that app. Because if they do, that could be a free ticket to thousands of users. So obviously, launch hard. Then there's some soft launch test marketing. So who knows what a soft launch is? So what is a soft launch?
Like a trial?
Yes, precisely. Soft launch is a trial. You put out your product in a specific market to a specific user group. You get some test going, and then you basically you get some initial data on what's going to happen. And there's a lot of advantages to that, and there's a reason why many businesses do this. And I think overall it's definitely a suggestion that I would say do that, because it helps you. It minimizes also your risk. Let's say you would make a big launch, and then suddenly you would have 1,000 users that buy all of these products, but you don't have anybody that will send out those products, so you don't have those products in your inventory, and then you're suddenly out of products, and you don't have anything, and you don't know what to do, and then suddenly chaos starts to ensue. So one way of counteracting this is obviously by soft launching, and like getting something going. Then measure everything. Kind of talked about this already. This is some actual data that we had at Biddle, and some of the stuff we were measuring. Then there's re-engaged churned users. I think I mentioned this already. Don't have to go through this in full detail. I think this is basically that. It's again used just from Facebook here. This stuff, and it's quite to the point. You know, it kind of explains to you why you should use it, and why Facebook wants you to use it. Why it's kind of a win-win. This was actually some of the best stuff that we did at Biddle. The re-engagement stuff, it had actually some of the best results. So when you launch something, you should always have like re-engagement ready. And then finally, A and B test to drive product development. So this is the last one. So basically now you have your product out there in the market, and you know what's going on. So now you have data, so then you should also use it to tell you what to do. So inside the product, you might think that you should have, I don't know, this type of feature or that type of feature, but now you can actually ask your users. They can tell you what you need or what they want, which is a win-win. That's what you want. You want to make your customers happy. So it's kind of this discussion that we had a lot in Biddle times, in the kind of when we were doing product development. So the second option feels right, let's go with that. And then there's like this engineer type of guy, and he says like, yeah, should we always ignore what the data says, or is this just a one-time thing? That's called intuition. You know, that's what I mean with kind of preconception earlier. And then it's like, yeah, it's a little bit like witchcraft kind of thing. So it literally is like that. So basically this just tells you that if you have some data, then you should also try to use it, and you should try to do some A/B testing. Yeah, here are all of them. I will distribute this deck out to the guys from Shortcut, and you can obviously then take a look at it. I know it was a bit dry now and a bit much kind of stuff, but it's kind of hard to compress everything you learn in such a short period. So, yeah. So here they are the kind of the learnings that we had, and that I think that would help anybody that would launch an app today to kind of make things easier for that person. Yeah. All right. Now I have planned. We are a little bit behind schedule, but it's not too bad. I had like this ad marketing case planned for us that we should do, and I think we should do it so that maybe we divide up a little bit into groups, or however which way you prefer doing it, and we take maybe like let's say 15-minute not break, but 15-minute period where you guys prepare the case or take a look at the case and see what you can do, and then after that we can go through together and see what we come up with. So I call it the Blizio app marketing case. So you have been hired as a CMO in a mobile gaming startup called Blizio. The business model is to sell these coins that I've talked about throughout the presentation to the consumer. The coins are used by the consumer to play the game. But now the company is struggling. It's not really working as it should. So that's why they hired you to turn it around. They are measuring some data, so they have like a platform where they know what's going on, but they don't know what's wrong, and they don't know how to calculate the kind of the key things and know kind of what's really going on. So the first thing is obviously you kind of have to calculate what is the cost per click, what is the cost per installation, and so on. Given this data, it should be pretty simple. I even added the kind of the formula there to make it kind of pretty intuitive. But the advantage what this gives you is that you know that you have done it once, and then you know what these terms are, because you have actually looked at, okay, it's this, and then divided by this, and you know what they are. So the first thing is kind of let's see if we can calculate these numbers, and then secondly, why is it not working? Now we have checked it. So why is the business not working? Now we know that this is kind of where the people drop off in the funnel. So what is the main funnel step where this is not really going our way? Where should it be going a different way? And I know this one is not really easy to answer, because obviously it's different for every app and stuff like that, but in essence, like just high level, where would you think, oh, this is going wrong? And then last but not least, come up with some improvement initiatives. So what are the things? I've mentioned a couple of things to give you a couple of hints maybe. So obviously you can do some things, but with virality, you can try to get free users into the app, you can do a bunch of things. So come up and try to be creative with some solutions. So maybe we should take, let's say, 20, so until 1730 or something like that. Let's see if we can look at that. Yeah, that's it. You can divide up how you have it if you want. So let's divide it up like in a group of 5, something like that. Yeah. Maybe based on how you sit or something like that, even however.
Sí, por culpa de ellos, Javi, pero no venís. Ah, no, pero vamos a coger merienda, ¿no? ¿Venís a coger merienda o qué? ¿Quedan? Ala, esta.
Les Conchi was
Uno de cupcakes.
by Capri.
For installation. So marketing cost is 40,000.
Bueno,